defending, I think, is like.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian, man. Come on.
Thank you for that, Ian Wright. People deluded, I'm back again. You know, Friday night football didn't disappoint for the neutral. Probably disappointed if you're a Southampton fan, being 2 goals up in the relegation race. Obviously, where Arsenal are concerned, we've had 3 draws. You know, we've had 3 draws now, 2 prior to this. It's a point gain. Very different to the Liverpool and West Ham games where we drop points from winning positions. We can count ourselves lucky that we've conceded 3 goals now. For as much, you know, let me start with a positive. I'm proud of my boys. There's so much I love about you lot this season. There's so much that hasn't been here within this team that has been introduced this season, and I hope it continues in relation to doing what we haven't done. We've got to remember, back-to-back 8th, 5th, now we're on course to be in the Champions League. It's been allegedly it's been, delayed because we didn't win today. But when it comes to a title race and fighting a City team, which you need to be perfect against, we've shot ourselves in the foot. It's not over until it's over. Mathematically, it can still be done, but you need a miracle. The hunters have become the hunted, and Pep's laughing now. The next time we play against them on Wednesday, you have to get something from the game, innit? And right now, I don't want to hear not a single player, not a single fan feeling sorry for themselves. As I said, I'm proud of what we're doing. It would be very disappointing not to mark this season with some silverware. Having gone out of everything and only having what allegedly we're fighting for, it probably might not end that way. But we shot ourselves in the foot. You need to control the variables that you can control. You don't know what the future is going to have. You can talk about City dropping points all you want until you're blue in the face. I can. Last time I checked, I'm black. So we'll be here all day, probably longer than we will be here. But you need to maximize your variables. And we didn't do that today. We didn't. Normally, we're fast starters. We didn't do that today. Fair enough. Ramsdale's done a madness. I'm not going to draw out Ramsdale. You have to hold your licks. Everybody in the team should flick your ear. I don't know what he was doing 30 seconds into the game, but that's also a man that has saved us 9 times out of 10. Mistakes happen. You've done that. Personally, I think we was too emotional after the first goal was scored. We were too hungry to put a good performance. Maybe we're thinking about the dynamics of the Premier League and things. I think we was too excited and we was exploited on the transition there, really. Obviously Saka's not done as well as he can. Partey's got into a mess. We kind of got away with it. Odegaard's played a blind pass. It's a fantastic counter-attack from Southampton. You've seen how, Walcott's made the run off Gabriel from out to in. There's actually other players moving as well. They've done well. Prior to the game, just before kickoff, their gaffer sat there and said, we're going to press high. And based on that, obviously you get... Rams, they're playing out from the back. You're going to get them mistakes in it. But they pressed high. They got their luck for that. And obviously they took advantage on the transition. And that's my only worry. Not really for Gabriel this game, but Ramsdale. If we keep going the way we're going, and as much as I believe in you two and you lot's potential and what you're doing, you lot need to minimize these mistakes. And again, keeping our bottle, winning our games. That street smartness that I think avoided us, defending better. We're an improved defensive side. We're not a good defensive side. We need to love that ugly part of the game. I'm not personally surprised in what the bad has happened in this game, like the previous 2 games, because games we've won throughout the season, not as exaggerated, but we've shown the element to switch off from set pieces, to be caught on the transition, to make games harder than it needs to be, to not really box smart, to lack street smartness. And in terms of improvements, obviously, I'd not like to concede 2 goals 15 minutes in. I don't think we worked Bizarnu well enough, if I'm honest, in Southampton's goal throughout the game, only really in added on time in the second half. And in the first, really, but only in added on time that there's really sustained pressure. The half chances we had, obviously we took 3 of them, and I can't really say we didn't work the keeper if we got 3 goals, but I don't feel we worked the keeper to the standard of a team that's one of the top goal scorers in the Premier League. I don't think we created enough clear-cut chances. I don't think the chances that were presented, we took them. Gabriel Jesus as well. I think there was a couple of times where players are trying to do Steven Gerrard stuff and shoot from unnecessary positions. Obviously, 20 minutes in, we've done well to react to at least going 2 goals down with Martinelli bagging. For a large part of the game, it looked like only Martinelli would make something happen, if I'm completely honest with you. And this is why I keep sitting here and saying, stop talking about City. Now you can talk about City. That's our next game, but you can't look beyond what is in front of you. And I don't think the players did that today, man. I don't think, there's improved mentality and things. Previous Arsenal teams would have lost this, and that's great. In comparison to what we've been lacking and what we need to go on and improvement, I'm proud of us. But if we're isolating Arsenal to a Premier League title winning side, you're making it tougher than it needs to be. And in my opinion, you're now in the territory, which I didn't want to be of, where you've got to rely on other teams to do you a favour, which I'm not really on. I think Southampton, to their credit throughout the game, they were incredibly street smart. I think the ref didn't make any major decisions. I desperation settings, but I would have loved 1-2 penalties. I think the ref was getting done a bit on minor decisions, but I don't think, for both teams, but I don't think he played a massive part. I have to credit to Southampton, ultimately fighting for their lives. That would have put them up to 19th. They're now 20th, so playing well needs to correlate to winning. But I think the high pressing worked. I think they pressed us high. They always look dangerous on the counter attack. I think there was committed defending. I think this is another game. It was a physical game for Jesus. I don't think he done well enough today for his standards. He's still my guy. But I think this is a game that showed why we probably need a number 9 that's a bit different, that we can afford to be a bit more direct. Obviously, Fabio Vieira, for me personally, I think he was the worst player on the pitch, even though people made mistakes. He's still my guy, still retaining faith. But if we're keeping it 100 minutes you played, obviously with him and Odegaard, we're not going to be physically imposing in midfield. Partey's got to kind of do the lion's share of that. But we had 2 Marga man in midfield, especially Fabio. He's too easy to get past. Obviously, when I've described Fabio Vieira, passing range, wonder of a left foot, good in tight spaces. And I said it, and I'll still stand by it. I look stupid. Maybe I do look deluded, but you can't kill a man for having an opinion. I thought we'd win 4-1. I tried to be optimistic. I thought Fabio Vieira would have a great game. I thought you got another opportunity. But similar to how he got an opportunity under Bournemouth, he didn't take it today. Ball retention, all of that stuff. Terrible today from Fabio. But we win, lose, and draw together. We didn't do well enough today. We have to hold our licks. On the transitions, open, far too much space, too emotional once again at times. Reece Nelson's hit the post. The subs did their thing. Trossard looked good. Nelson did a thing. The subs added something, but by then it's too late, man. And you leave too much to. Obviously, we could have nicked it, but you leave too much when you've conceded 3 goals. And I'm not surprised because certain things we've done today, they were there against Man United at home. They were there at Brighton away. They were there at Leeds away. They were there at Aston Villa away. They were there at Bournemouth at home. We're very naive, and I don't know why it is. I don't want to keep saying it's down to a lack of experience and things like that. But you've got to, we've got to get to a scenario, with all due respect to Southampton, if we are fighting for titles, that these men are food, they're lunch. You either eat or you become the food, innit? And now the hunters have become the hunted, and we need to just keep our bottle. It's not over till it's over. It's still somewhat in our hands, even though I think you're relying on a lot. If I had to bet money on beating City, of course I wouldn't do that. I would love to be proven wrong. You can't kill a brother for being honest. There's every reason to be negative. There's every reason to be positive. I think there's a lot of negatives. There's a lot of positives. We can just move. The game's gone against Southampton. We still ain't lost. We still ain't got our loss in 9. It is concerning. Like, if we were just fighting for top 4, this is suitable form. But if you're fighting for the league, boy, you're hoping a miracle happens in it, and it just makes that Wednesday game even more exciting for the neutrals. I'm sure the neutrals were entertained far too much today. Like, I actually feel Holding was one of our better players, but once again, you saw evidently a lot of limitations. Yeah, man, and I don't think we can. I think it's another team that were kind of street smart. Southampton were wasting a lot of time. I think Southampton, there was a lot of good elements. In that first half. Even in the second half, and we was all over them, we then conceded the sucker punch goal. You know how football gets, in it. We can't talk about new signings until next season, but a number 9 wouldn't go and miss. Some more physical centre mids that can do the passing thing. Declan Rice, Caicedo, they're probably going to respin them links again. I don't think we hit the target enough or really put the keeper under sustained pressure. Being at home with our positive atmosphere, being one of the top goal scorers, being in dramatically better form. We didn't do that, and the Premier League's crazy, isn't it? Like, 2 teams with contrasting fortunes come to this, and you wouldn't have seen that in it. So, yeah, man, on the face of it, 4 points clear, allegedly at the top. Not that I checked the league table. One of you posted that 2 games played more than City. It's out of your hands. At the end of the day, it's in your hands if you win your games. But ifs and buts are another thing, and City can drop as much points as they want. You need to be able to maximize this, and you're never going to be perfect over 38 games. There are going to be some games where you're poor and you just need to get through it. But there's certain things that have been consistent in our game throughout, and you need to be near enough perfect against City. And we've definitely of recent we've dropped too many points, man. We dropped too many points. We definitely should have had 6 points coming into this game against Southampton. I would have loved to have had have 6 points on the board going into City. Gonna have to do it the hard way, really. Good, bad, and the ugly of the young players. Big up to Saka for obviously getting a goal and assist. Martinelli looked good. Who else scored? Odegaard at least done a thing, but I didn't see enough from anyone across 90 minutes. I think Partey was one of the better players, but he was still kind of lacking. And again, one thing I don't want to see is individuals being blamed. We win, lose, and draw together. Yeah, mistakes or players' performances that played a part, but there's evident limitations, man. Jesus was always going to struggle against committed defenders today, but I don't think he had the best of game. We win, lose, and draw together. If one man has a good game, the other 10 are shaky, what does it mean then? It don't mean much. So you have to go again, man. Definitely the goals we've conceded of recent are very concerning, but they've been there all season. You know, the 4 conceded across West Ham. Sure, West Ham and Liverpool, can't remember the scoreline, but anyways, the goals conceded in them games, and now it's poor. You know, the very fact that that's 3 games played and that amount of goals is poor. The manner and what we're scoring, and these are things once again that have been there all season. Old habits die hard, and they're going to need to die in it. There's a lot of building blocks for this season, but yeah, man, there's just going to be nothing to mark it off. I hope I'm wrong, of course, but yeah, man, you can't blame a brother for having an opinion, man. So yeah. It just is what it is, really. It's I know we're talking about leagues and stuff, but I'm more frustrated at just at the isolated game of football and not really showing discipline, not really managing the game as good as we can, not playing as good as we can. That's where I'm most annoyed about, because if we take care of that, like we was doing at the start of the season, naturally things happen. And I also believe that, as I always say, I don't think we're a good defensive side. We're an improved defensive side with a long way to go. I think them improvements that were kind of there at the start of the season, slowly but surely they've been unraveling. There's nothing else we can do but get on with it. I don't want to see players feeling sorry for themselves. You can't. The pain of discipline, which you lot needed to display in that game in the last 3, hurts. It hurts, but it hurts a lot less than the feeling of regret. Why? Because installing discipline, you need to do it in the present. Regret is a past tense thing, isn't it? You can't go back in time. We can't look at credit to Southampton. It's been 2 draws where, ironically, we dropped points from winning positions. You can't go back in them games. You can't go back to Man United in September. You can't go back across the season. And respectfully to Southampton, a bit like, you know, against the teams fighting for their lives, we're making it harder than it needs to be. You know, essentially, we made it a lot harder than it needs to be home and away against Southampton. You know, we had a crazy game against Bournemouth. Our most frustrating performance of the season would probably be West Ham for me. You know, which they're fighting relegation at this moment. Our worst performance would be Everton, but all we can do is take the good and make it great. All we can do is try to improve and go again, really and truly. I'm proud of my boys, but pride only goes so far, because second place, first loser, like French Montana says, and no one remembers that. I would say it would be a season of disappointment, not a season of failing or bottling or whatever, because fair enough, since we've had this opportunity, you know, it would be somewhat that. But for me, you can't go from not having Arsenal in your top four shouts and things to what we're doing now. And talk nonsense, but you know, we banter a lot of other teams. We need to hold our licks. The game's the game. You know, we can't control any talking points of what other people think. All we can do is give a good account of ourselves, and it is what it is, man. Ultimately, there's a lot of naivety, really. I like the fact Trossard came on. I think he should have come on at halftime. I think potentially if Arteta watches that game again, maybe he could have brought Tini on and put Zinchenko into midfield. Maybe Trossard could have come on. You know, Odegaard could have went into the Xhaka role. Trossard comes in the 10 a lot sooner. Maybe could have actually. I'm a big Jesus fan. You still start against City for me, but actually could have took off Jesus a lot sooner than need be. I'll never criticize the gaffer, but it felt like Martinelli and Nelson had a positive impact, to be fair. But I felt Martinelli probably come off a bit too soon for me. And then other than that, as much as I'm talking about reinforcements, this isn't the end of the season, isn't it? So it is what it is. So yeah, three draws. I think that as good as we've been this season, the level we've been playing is unsustainable. And as previously said, I personally believe, you know, you earn the right to be where we're at. We're doing well. But I think because of what Arsenal are doing this season, people, specifically Arsenal fans, are putting us at a level that we're not and thinking we've got certain places that we're not. We're still not there, especially in terms of game management. You know, until this football club loves defending, there's an issue. We won't get to where we need to. And we miss Xhaka. I think if we have Granit, it's a different ball game. But at the same time, it's always the players that are not involved that are the messiahs, isn't it? So simply put, we need to go again. It's as simple as that. On that note, though, you lot stay safe, stay blessed, and I'll see you lot later, man. Please make sure you comment, smash the like button. Let me know your thoughts. One love.
So it's always just that active red line, defenders. I think it's like